Shut up and sit down.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening from wherever you're listening across the world. Welcome to another episode of Just Ball Things, NBA Finals Edition. With me today, rocking the killer stash, my dude. Surprisingly fitting your strange-looking face. We have the J-Man Jack Manuel. How are you?
Strange-looking face. I'll take it.
Well, you know, some dirty mows look good on some people. I, for one, cannot pull one off, but I rock a great neck beard. I've got my hobo gloves on. It's just
a neck beard.
The neck beard. We've coined it. I when it gets a little bit out of hand, I look like a slightly fatter Samuel Tarly, somehow. So that's always a good look. For those familiar with Game of Thrones, there's a little Easter egg for you. My name is Nick Busing, and did you know that when I grow my neck beard, I resemble a fat Samuel Tarly? It's a fascinating dynamic I have with my own looks and my general not caring what I'd look like. Although I did get these hobo gloves, as I mentioned before, from Tassie. I went to Tasmania this week, which was going to be my random fact, which is why I could not record last week. But I got sick gloves out of the trip because Tassie is fucking cold. So it was all good. It was all good. All right, Jackie boy, we've got some basketball to talk about. The finals have been popping, and you can contact us at Twitter at the J-Man JBT or at JBT Nick. We're also closely affiliated with OTG Basketball. They've got an awesome podcast network and YouTube network where you can keep up to date with all things NBA. Make sure you give them a follow on Twitter at OTG Basketball and on YouTube at OTG Basketball. If you are watching us on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, all of the standard stuff that every other YouTuber tells you to do. Do it for us too. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/justballthings. Give us a like and a follow there. And you can always hit us up on emails, jbtpodcast@gmail.com, if that's the avenue you choose. Jackie boy, we'll start here with some Busing Manuel scale. As always, for those of you who are new, this is a JBT creator scale that sums up how likely things are to happen in the NBA. We scale it on alternative fact, Twitter fact, Wikipedia fact, and straight up fact. It's as easy as it sounds. As per Richard Jefferson, Jackie boy, first one here. When Giannis is at his best, he doesn't benefit those around him. Sounds like a controversial take, Jackie boy.
It's a controversial take, and it's one that I think is incredibly simplistic. We go down the route of finding narratives, and look, it's symptomatic of places like The Jump and ESPN to just look for narratives where they don't have to be. Where the narrative should be, Giannis had a 21 or 20-point third quarter. The most in, 20, 30 years?
Since MJ, I think it was.
Obviously, it has to be MJ or Wilt Chamberlain, one of those dudes. I think that we get in these weird sort of narrative battles to sort of go, okay, well, Chris Paul does this, so Giannis doesn't do this. We lose the appreciation, and I think I said this on a couple of podcasts, that why not just go that if you watch the game, the narrative and the takeaways from it are that Giannis is freaking insane, and he's doing this after, his knee came off his leg. I don't know how he's doing this right now. That injury was horrific, and we need to stop seeing. Yeah, we need to stop seeing it, by the way. He is just a cyborg. The muscles in his body must be Terminator-like, because it's insane what he's actually doing, let alone...
I imagine him like Venom. It's all the tendons just magically healing back together.
Yeah, he's like Piccolo.
He sprouts a new arm. He got his leg chopped off in that hotel room and sprouted a new leg. There's no other explanation, Jackie boy.
No, clearly is not. But I just think that it's silly, Nick, and it's an alternative fact with the clear. I understand that there is a media love for Chris Paul now that is bordering on the unhealthy and just everything. It's just like, I get it. We'll get to Chris Paul in a little bit, and we'll discuss him in a sec. But focusing on Giannis and the Bucks, the takeaways from them, as I was about to say, should be that Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday are trash offensive players right now, and the reliability of them is like relying on me to grow a nice mustache and for Nick to grow a good neck beard. It just ain't going to happen. It's just not a good look for these two players. And we can, yes, like Giannis doesn't get, your last mid-range shot like Kevin Durant or Devin Booker or Chris Paul does. But Shaq didn't do that either, and Shaq's one of the best 10-20 players that's ever played the game. One of the most physically dominant players that we've ever seen. And Giannis is doing things that are equal, if not greater, than Shaq, and to even say that is almost blasphemous, but it is true. The takeaways and focus should be on the inadequacies of their second and third best player. And it's as simple as that. You can't have Pat Connaughton, getting you buckets more and being more reliable. You can't have Brook Lopez in the post being a primary offensive weapon. Giannis is doing so much. And yes, his Euro might not totally be there, and there is, I guess, his free throw shooting and whatever, but Drew Holiday missing, 8 layups or whatever it is. Chris Middleton, he puts the mid in Middleton, is just not hitting any mid-ranges, not hitting any shots. The lack of just creativity of their offense is something that is getting really bogged down, and the depth in their rotation is incredibly shallow.
Yeah.
Mike Budenholzer always looks like he's dumbfounded at whatever basketball play is happening on the floor. Like, if looks could kill, Mike Budenholzer would have been dead long ago. Like, he's just got a really dumb-faced look, But in saying that, and, compare that to Monty Williams and how he's motivating guys like DeAndre Ayton on the bench. So, Nick, I'm over this. Like, a part of me is like, I'm not watching the jump anymore. I'm not really consuming any ESPN content because the amount of BS that comes out of, look, we know about Rachel Nichols, but also the amount of BS that comes out of Kendrick Perkins and now Richard Jefferson's mouth about just twisting things into a way that makes greatness, that underrates greatness or doesn't appreciate it. Look, we do that for LeBron. We do that for Kevin Durant. It's just like Giannis is now the new breed. It's going to happen to Luka again soon. It's going to happen to Trae Young again soon.
Yeah.
Let's just try and focus on the purity and awesomeness of these NBA Finals right now. And it's not Giannis that needs to lift his team. It's the people around him. It's the second, third, fourth, fifth, and best player that need to lift their game to get to the level that Giannis is playing at. And then the Bucks might have a shot at winning a few freaking games.
Well, you mentioned that sort of detracts from the second unit. I think this point, albeit pointed at Giannis, definitely does comment on their lack of production, and I think that's the crux of it. I mean, the case that when Giannis performs, the second unit does not. I mean, second unit, that's probably a bit harsh. Chris Middleton is not second unit, but it's very much a feel of maybe a bit big for the moment. And the Phoenix crowd was definitely making their case known for, who they wanted to win the championship. It's no surprises there. So that could be a very daunting task from these guys who've never been in the finals before. You saw Giannis like hyping these guys up on the bench in one of the Wired sort of segments, which I thought was awesome. This is something that we don't really see a lot of Giannis, so it was really good to have that insight on the court just to try to get his guys fired up because he needs them. He 100% needs them. He cannot do this by himself. He certainly tried to in game 2.
Yeah.
47 or something like that. It was 42. God damn, what a game. But it's a bit concerning that your star players are acting like role players, not being able to perform away from home. We are only in game 2, so it's a bit, it's a bit turned to the Suns.
They are going to come out firing, Nick, and everyone's already said, they've come back from 2-0 before, but the reason they came back from 2-0 before is because Kyrie Irving had his ankle injured. So I think we need to discredit the fact that they came back from 2-0. They came back from 2-0 because we lost our second best player. That's why they came. The Phoenix Suns are as healthy as they've ever been. Chris Paul's got some little dings up here and there, and Devin Booker's nose is going to look like mine probably by the end of this series. But in saying that, they're really good shape. We did hear that Torrey Craig is possibly going to be available for Game 3, which is fantastic news. Obviously, with the absence of Dario Saric with the ACL injury, which is
that sucks.
Absolutely sucks. And we're seeing that in the AFL right now. Any big injury to any player on any team, it's just injuries suck. And we've got some topics that will surround that in future podcasts. But I just think that the Suns are in a really good spot. I think that the Bucks, they're going to bounce back in Game 3. I expect them to win it. I unfortunately won't be able to watch the next couple of games because I'll be away from any form of technology, unfortunately. But I fully expect the Bucks to bounce back. Home crowd advantage. The Bucks crowd's going to be as crazy as the Suns crowd. They're as wide as high and as hyped up as those in Arizona. Don't worry about that. And we'll see plenty of beer chugging and the 8K cameras and the counting what beat. This finals have been fun, but we need to focus on that, Nick, because I think that people that choose to go down a route of being like, this is awful, this sucks, whatever, the ratings, it's just like, basketball's awesome, man. All sport is awesome, and I think we're going to miss it quite a lot in the next couple of weeks when it does go away, and obviously we'll have the draft to talk about, and we'll be doing boomer podcasts. Recapping exhibition games against Team USA in Vegas and Nigeria, even though Nigeria is in our group, and I'm not very hopeful after what they did. But yeah, let's enjoy this finals for what it is. It's a lot of fun, and yes, Chris Paul's awesome, and I guess we should touch on Chris Paul's awesomeness now, Nick.
Yeah, good segue, Jackie boy. Chris Paul is a lock for Finals MVP. It's big, Jackie boy. He's obviously had a tremendous game, game 1. He certainly put the Suns on his back to win that game. Where are you going with this one?
He had a very good game 2 as well. It wasn't I think he had like 23 points, a solid amount of assists, really good control of the game, hit some nice buckets.
But that's quintessential Chris Paul. That sort of 20-point-ish range, maybe even a little less. He's obviously just control.
Yeah, now obviously he's battling out Booker, maybe to a lesser extent Ayton, who I think's been good, but I think Booker was really, really good, if not great, in Game 2. And if the Bucks do come back, it's Giannis's. Like, there's no doubt about that. So those are our candidates right now. Now, lock might be somewhat strong. Now, I don't know how tight this lock is, what type of lock we got going on. Have we got combination locks? Is it one of those that you put on the... in Gay Patty, where they're all cute and they're all like little heartfelt? Are they those ones? Or are they big industrial kind of locks, which is like, this is done. You ain't opening this door, you ain't opening this storage locker for the next 25 years. Now, I'll go with the cutesy little Gay Patty love-shaped heart lock, because I think that this is Chris Paul's to lose. We alluded to earlier about, the media is who votes on this, and the media borderline obsession with Chris Paul right now. It's similar to like LeBron and AD. AD started last year's final series pretty hot. Yeah. And I was like, AD might actually win this. And then LeBron just did enough in the early parts of the series and then closed it out. I expect probably a similar thing to happen, but I think there's a greater likelihood that Devin Booker can steal this than what AD did last year, because Devin Booker, if you're comparing their like 2 games so far, Chris Paul's had an awesome game 1. Devin Booker had an awesome game 2. Who was better? Like, it's essentially neck and neck at this rate, and it's going to come down to some level of subjective bias, which is probably going to go Chris Paul's way. As we go along, I think Devin Booker's to snatch the MVP if the Phoenix Suns were to win it. It's going to take, a 40-point performance here or there. He got a triple-double in the early parts of the finals as well, where Chris Paul was absent, something like that, to really shock the voters and go, well, we can't necessarily deny him here. So I'll go wiki with this, Nick, because it's a pretty strong lock, but it's not the strongest that I've ever seen.
I mean, it's all dependent. The result of the championship is still up in the air. Like, this is not a foregone conclusion that the Suns will win. If the Suns don't win the championship, then Chris Paul's not winning it for Finals MVP. I do not care.
LeBron in 2016 or 17 or 15.
I don't care, Jack. It will never feel right, especially when you've got a player like Giannis.
No, like the Norm Smith medal, Buckley, and it should go to the best player. And in that series, LeBron James was putting up like 45, and the guy who was guarding him won the MVP. That is for me, that is a travesty.
We're not talking about 45 games, Jack. We're talking about 20-point games. Sure, he has his finger on the pulse and he's really controlling these games. But if Giannis, if the Bucks were to win this series, then Giannis needs to be big. He needs to be big in every game, and then he needs contributions from everywhere else. So he is going to win Finals MVP if that were to happen, because there's no way the Bucks win without that.
With you in imagination, I'm just saying that if Giannis were to, if they were to lose by like a couple of points here or there, and they would go 7, and Giannis, to be honest, Giannis hasn't been as overwhelming as LeBron has been in certain final series, and in that in particular, like. I don't know if we're getting on a weird tangent, but LeBron did deserve to win that Finals MVP in my eyes. It's never going to happen because I don't know why people don't award it to the best player. The best, if I'm ranking right now, Nick, I would go Chris Paul, Giannis, Devin Booker.
Because the Suns are 2-0 up.
But I had Giannis second.
Yeah, sure. I probably would too. But we're not talking about, no one cares who comes second in Finals MVP voting, you know? It's all about who takes that. If the Bucks had won 2 games away, undoubtedly it would be, even if the stats were exactly the same. Obviously, you got to shift a few points here and there to make the Bucks win. But if that were the case, you've got a 42-point game from Giannis and I think a 30-ish one or 20-ish one. The game before, he's Finals MVP. If the Bucks are 2-0 up, he's Finals MVP.
Do you think that it's flawed that we just go by results? Because I mean, that's how
the result is part of the result is part of the reason why it's such a big narrative for Chris Paul, because he doesn't put up the mega stats, but he makes them win. So the result is very important for Chris Paul. That's part of his thing. Whereas Giannis, he puts up monster stats, and if they don't get the win, that's not really in the same, it's not really part of his repertoire, if that makes sense. Whereas the win for Chris Paul, he's able to do seemingly so little, but so much to get that win. Whereas if it doesn't get the win, it just looks like he's just doing very little.
Right.
So I don't think he's a lock either. This is a Twitter fact for me at best, because the result of the finals is so up in the air. I have Suns in 6. So I think the Bucks will split at Milwaukee. I think the Suns have just shown me exactly what they are. They've been able to do it on the road and at home in every series. So I'm all in. I'm all in on the Suns. So I reckon they'll split. So I guess for me, Chris Paul would be the Finals MVP, unless Booker has some crazy surge to win them, to single-handedly win them games. But Chris Paul is just the epitome of consistency. I can't see him having some dud games. He's just going to be a consistent guy over the next 4 games in my eyes, and that'll be enough. And it's a storied thing as well. Booker may be there again, but this team didn't go under drastic. I mean, the coaching change, sure. But Chris Paul was the biggest difference maker in this thing, and he very well deserves it just from that perspective alone. The guy's in the twilight of his career. He's never won there's a whole bunch of other stuff that will come into play when people are voting for Finals MVP, and that is going to take a monumental performances from Devin Booker to take this from Chris Paul at the moment. Yep. And I just don't think that, unless he goes for 50 points in the next 4 games, I don't see it.
See, the thing is, he only needs to do it for 2, Nick. He only needs to do it in their wins. So if he could put up 240, or 40 and a 50, or 45 and or whatever, or 40 and a 10, or a 35 and a 10,
but if maybe Chris Paul is that floor general in the last quarter, if he's setting up guys and he's scoring those mid ranges at a good clip, I don't think that matters.
No, I personally think it does, because if we get a Devin Booker game winner, in 1 or 2 games as well, there's a universe. I agree that it is unlikely, which is why I had this at a stronger on the scale than you did as a wiki fact. But I guess before we do move on to some non-finals content, do you think that this series is more likely to end in 5 or 7 games? Because you said 6, but if you had to put your money on it.
5.
Okay.
Jesus. Oh, no, I'm just... 5 seems ridiculously short. But if Phoenix do split, there is a good chance that they take that.
Because they go back home.
They go back home.
5. Yeah. And if that's what you think, I think 5 is very likely.
Yeah, that is true. Maybe I should rethink, because I did say 6. Maybe I should rethink my stance on the split. Because I think you're right. If they do split, then we just saw 2 games in Phoenix and how prolific they were. Yeah, that's a good point. And the Bucks would have to just not be shit. Just don't be shit away from home. That's all we ask. You know, Giannis is trying so hard to fire up these guys, and I don't know. Maybe is this an indictment on Coach Bud again? I don't know. It's hard, Jackie boy. I wouldn't want to be in this position. The amount of pressure that these guys are on, and you know the legacy hit that it does. It does hit Giannis and even Coach Bud. It's a difficult spot to be in, but from what we've seen. 2 games, small sample size, then yeah, I think a 5 is more likely than a 7. That is an excellent point, Jackie boy. Shall we move on to some other stuff? The Blazers and Damian Lillard won't make the finals again in his career.
Now, they haven't made the final. They've made the Western Conference Finals against Golden State Warriors, where I think it was 4 or 5. I can't remember, but it was certainly a pretty insignificant series in general. I think this is a fact, Nick. Now, obviously, we heard Damian Lillard at Team USA Now get asked by reporters about the trade rumors that we've discussed and plenty of other platforms have discussed, and he's sort of saying, people are putting words in my mouth. I mean, yeah, maybe, but you sort of infer things by what people say and by. You're putting out Instagram posts with Nipsey Hussle quotes that sort of infer, maybe go on to the next one or whatever the hell he said. I can't remember the necessary captions. I think that ultimately Portland has run its race, and that's not a detriment or an indictment on what Damian Lillard has done for this franchise. Best Blazer probably ever. And if he were to leave, does that take away from his... I guess personality of being loyal till I die? Is he going to be able to put out another album and put out some raps that have similar sort of themes? Maybe not, but if he wants to win a championship, he's going to have to leave Portland. I'm pretty strong on that, and part of that is also because there was a pretty good piece from True Hoop NBA that detailed, I guess, the leadership and such of Neil O'Shea, the current GM, what he has done or hasn't done for this franchise, he is limiting Damian Lillard's success. Now, I'm not saying that, he's holding him back, but I actually kind of am. Sorry, I think he's holding him back. I think he's being held back from greatness because of Neil O'Shea's incompetence, lack of desire. There were quotes in that piece sort of saying, I'm limited by the fact that I'm in a small market team. It's just my dude, then why are you in this job? Give the job to a person who wants to be in Portland and wants this small market team to find success. We've got 2 quote-unquote small market teams in the finals right now. James Jones has done an awesome job, and John Horst and the front office of the Milwaukee Bucks have done a really good job to get the Bucks to where they are right now. So I'm completely anti-Neil O'Shea, and obviously what he did at the press conference with Chauncey Billups is yet another blip on his otherwise a not impeccable resume. I'm just not a fan of his at all. And there's even talk that he has greater power within that franchise than Jody Allen, the current owner who took over from Paul Allen, who passed, his daughter. And he's getting all the say and every little thing here and there. And I don't know, Nick, could Scott Brooks save them?
Trust in Scott Brooks. He just got hired as an assistant. When I saw the notification, it was Blazers hire Scott Brooks, and I was just as head coach? What the hell? And completely forgetting, obviously, of the whole Chauncey thing. But I don't know, Jack. I don't know. The guy's been around great point guards his entire career. Maybe that's
good point.
That's exactly why he was hired. I mean, that's why he was hired with us to to, develop John Wall, and then that didn't happen. But then Bradley Beal has had his best career. So can you credit that to Brooks, or can you credit that to just, normal play? Brief technical difficulties. Anyway, sorry. As I was saying, Scott Brooks. Can you credit that to Scott Brooks, or can you credit that on just Bradley Beal getting older, getting better, maturing? He's going to get better with time, regardless of his coach, I would say, because he's so self-motivated as well. But it could be good. I don't know. I have very little opinions of Scott Brooks, which I probably should have some loud ones, but my loudest opinion on him, obviously, other than I don't think he's an amazing coach. I think he's a good-ish coach, but I do think that his impact on Russell Westbrook, for sure, it was amazing what he did in OKC, and then
he wasn't a point guard. Like, people were saying, like, he's not a point guard, whereas Scott Brooks persisted with him, and it's obviously the reason why Westbrook is such a big fan of his, and why we see this triple-double machine in the league right now. I think that is, if that's the legacy that Scott Brooks does leave, that's a pretty good one to leave on the NBA. So, and that's probably the reason why he is going to continue to be a part of NBA organizations and be on the fringes of head coaching positions for many years to come.
I think that's why it's probably a good call. It's a better call making him an assistant. It'd be more focused work, so he would more focus on the skills that he does have, instead of a head coach that really has to split his skills across the whole team, essentially. He may just be in charge of taking care of development of the point guards, seeing how to best get out of Lillard, which is sort of weird to say, because Lillard at this point, you can just throw him on a court and be like, dude, you do you, dude, and he knows what to do. But I am sort of in agreement with this as well. The current iteration of the Blazers, with Damian Lillard, I don't think we'll make a finals. Just because we've seen it, it feels like it feels like Groundhog Day with this team. We see it run back every year, some minor alterations to the team. We thought Nurkic would be like the big difference. We thought CJ McCollum would be probably a better player than he is now, especially a couple of years ago when we saw his sort of career progression. We definitely sort of not stagnated, but not made the leaps and bounds that we thought. And I don't see how things get better. Like, they don't really have transformational pieces. I mean, unless Anthony Simons or something becomes just an absolute beast, and he was good.
Zach Collins, I don't know. He actually gets healthy.
Exactly. Like, it's hard with this team. But new coach in town. They're shaking up the front office. Maybe that can. Sorry, they're shaking up their coaching staff, which maybe that can change something. All you need is, if the Suns have taught us anything, all you need is one Chris Paul, who is a free agent. So he could just bounce. Can you imagine the legacy this guy would leave if he just bounces from team to team and getting them further and further? It doesn't have to necessarily make them in the finals, but just bumps them up, and maybe Portland do make a finals with Chris Paul. Whoa, what a story that would be. But I say just one player, but Chris Paul is like a generational talent. Like, you don't just get those. And you've got them. You've got one of them in freaking Damian Lillard. So make the most of it, please. But yeah, I'm with you. It's extremely unlikely they'll make another finals with how they're currently set up. And things don't look likely to change, Jackie boy.
Which is very, very unfortunate. But
yeah,
things that have changed. Things that have changed, Nick, is the Space Jam Legacy Universe.
Ooh, Jackie boy, I've been waiting for this topic.
We'll probably, with basketball, when the finals do end, we might just do a review podcast of Space Jam 2. Now, Nick, the new Space Jam movie is going to be a bigger stain on LeBron's legacy than the 2011 finals. Oh. I didn't say this. I stole this tweet, and I thought it was a good one.
Jack,
and I thought it was
you sound like Skip Bayless right now. And I don't like bringing up Skip Bayless on this podcast, because the less airtime he has, the fucking better. But man, he harps on about this freaking Space Jam stuff and uses it as a knock on LeBron. Like, you'll never be MJ, man. I'm just like, let the guy just make a movie. fucking hell. You stick to his... I shouldn't say this, like, stay in your lane, because I truly hate that as well. But fuck you, Skip Bayless. He's saying this on the goddamn podcast. It's so petty. Anyway, that's enough airtime about him. But this is weird. The biggest stain on his LeBron's legacy. This has nothing to do with basketball, so it should have nothing to do with his basketball legacy. So there's an alternative fact, Jack. The 2011 finals will never be surpassed as a stain on LeBron's career, and I think, LeBron stans such as myself will probably fight tooth and nail to forget that 2011, or say that it was because of XYZ, but it was bad. It was bad. But, I mean, we're seeing the trailer for this now. This is not going to be bad. This can't be bad, Jackie boy. I don't care what you say.
What we aren't seeing is Porky Pig rap in a clip that I saw in an advertisement, which I was just like, dear Lord, this is what you're choosing to advertise to get people to see this movie? Now, to compare it, I guess, to MJ, Space Jam enhanced his legacy so much that in his Hall of Fame speech, he's like, well, the younger generation are only going to remember me because of Space Jam. That's how big of a legacy lever Space Jam was. Now, there is no way that it is going to enhance or detract or to have as big an impact negatively or positively in the same way as LeBron, because obviously we don't have Bill Murray in Space Jam 2. I mean, we've got Don Cheadle. Don Cheadle's awesome, and we got the CGI characters and weird crossovers and such. And, we've had people that have been connected to Nick and us, insider information, that have given us the hot scoop that it's actually a decent film. Yep. It's not even out yet around the world of July 15, 16, but preview screenings and the hot ticket for people down here. We hear that it's going to be okay. I hope that your mate is correct, Nick, because...
Well, you're outing him live on a podcast that has potentially thousands of listeners. So his opinion is going global. It's at least going global, Jackie boy. I've heard that it's not bad. There's a few like Easter eggs in there for adults as well, which was always good. The original Space Jam had that. Which was very, 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 very good. Part of the reason why it was very good. But without
what we need to do in the off-season is we need to do like a Space Jam podcast series. And it's just 2 podcasts. So like a series is just going to be the 2, and we do one after the other, because I don't think we actually have, despite the fact that we've been recording for like 5 years now, I still don't think we've done it. Like, you've done like some stuff on YouTube with Chaz, but I really want to do like a Space Jam 1 pod, because that's one of the, it defines a lot of my nature. Like, it defines me as a human being, the 15 times that I've seen it. Before this like podcast, Nick was talking about the food.
Jesus, no, that's not much, mate.
Well, no,
you need to bump those numbers. Those are rookie numbers.
I mean, just before this podcast, he was talking about like what he needs to buy from the supermarket, and he says chicken, and my immediate reaction is collard greens. That's like my immediate reaction.
Chicken and collard greens.
Oh, like it's we're not gonna get those moments from Space Jam 2. We're not gonna.
We're also not that young anymore, Jack. We're not that impressionable. I don't think movies have that big of an impact on us anymore, especially when they're sort of meme-y movies.
I think they do.
That's why a lot of people who are older than us in their 30s don't like Space Jam, because they're just like, this isn't a basketball movie. They're like, fuck you, it's great. It's hilarious. And Bill Murray is a gem. He's a national treasure.
Internet treasure.
Danny DeVito, what a cast. Far out, what a cast. Michael Jordan, do you know he was in it? Jeez. Fortunately, he didn't do anything after that, but... what a shame. There's a few commercials in there, but
true. But it's we'll definitely be diving deep into Space Jam 1, Space Jam 2. Very much looking forward to seeing them. And look, I might have to rewatch Space Jam 1 as a little bit of a warm up heading into
what a shame.
To Space.
Sounds like such a chore, Jackie boy. Probably the last time I watched Space Jam was at that New Year's Eve party. where we timed da 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 on the.
How good was that? How good was that?
It was perfect. Charles remembers that. Charles remembers that New Year's as one of the worst that she's ever been to, because we were just like fucking 10 grown men just watching Space Jam at midnight of New Year's. That was, and she's just sitting there, just like, what the fuck is this?
Perfection. There is no better news. You need to be in Times Square or in Paris watching the Eiffel Tower light up. You need to be in my parents.
I was in the presence of Bill Murray.
That's all we need. If you're in the presence of Bill Murray, you're in the presence of greatness. And if you're listening to this podcast, you've been in the presence of greatness too.
Oh, Jackie boy, that just about does it for another week. So we'd just like to say thank you for tuning in to Just Ball Thing, short and sharp this week. So you can always catch us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Player FM, Spreaker, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to your podcasts. We will be there. Do us a solid, leave us a rating and review. It helps us out a bunch if you're listening to us on Apple, 5 stars, please. If you are catching us on the YouTubes, hit that like button, make sure you subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you know when fresh content comes out by the OTG network. Remember, it is you guys that make this show great, so we appreciate any and every post heading our way. So until next week,
keep ballin', superstars.